Hello guys! So this week, continuing on the theme of authenticity and storytelling. Side note, I might be wearing this hat for at least a few more of these videos because it's very cold right now and I have hat hair and no desire to do all the things. So this is the look for now, at least for who knows how long. But anyways, today I want to talk about the hardest things that I had to really just learn and accept about myself. And there's probably a longer list, and now that I have come to a point that I really do love myself and I love all of me, there's a lot more grace. But I would say that coming to this point has been a series of really getting real with who I want to be in this life. And what I mean by that is I believe that we have an infinite amount of possibilities and options and choices for who we choose to be and how we choose to do it. And because of that, it can sometimes make it a little bit more difficult to come to certain decisions or even decide and choose because there's so many options. And I think one part of me that in the past there was more just like frustration with was this. The sun is like pouring into my house right now, so we're gonna go with this lighting, as beautiful and natural as it is. One thing that I felt like I didn't always love about myself was the fact that it was hard for me to make a decision, and also being so multi-passionate and so like just in love with life and everything that life has to offer, that it could seem scattered and it could seem disorganized, or it could seem just all over the place, which I have come to acceptance with that. And if you're familiar with human design, I'm a manifesting generator. So part of that is just literally being multi-passionate and allowing yourself to embrace that aspect of having a lot of passions, but also being good at several things. And the thing is, it's like, I think because of that, sometimes I felt very unbalanced and I felt very chaotic, and not just chaotic in the way that I decided or didn't decide stuff, but just in my emotions. And I was told a lot of times when I was younger that I was very sensitive and or that I was very quiet, and it wasn't necessarily coming from a place of loving that part. It wasn't like, oh, you're so sensitive, like that's amazing how sensitive you are, or wow, you're so quiet, I love how quiet you are. Like it wasn't coming from that. It was coming from more of like, I don't think it was necessarily on purpose, or even like maybe there just wasn't a level of awareness, but it did to me at the time when I was that age. it was received as these qualities not being good or not like being loved, right? Or that I needed to change them, or that I needed to alter them to to just make myself more lovable or digestible or whatever it was. So so for a very long time I did not like the fact that I was sensitive, and even being able to say I'm sensitive had such a bad like connotation for me. Like it just didn't, I didn't like it. I didn't like it because there wasn't that acceptance around it, right? But now, like, and this is just kind of a side note, it's like you can say the same thing and it could be completely different just because of the frequency that you're operating from. So it's like, I don't know where that quote comes from, but it's like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So like literally, like me saying now, I'm sensitive, like, yeah, I am. I'm sensitive to how people feel. I'm sensitive to the world around me. I'm sensitive to just life itself, and it's this sensitivity that has allowed me to be so connected. This sensitivity has allowed me to have the level of empathy that I do for others, even if I've never met them or will not meet them a day in my life. This sensitivity has allowed me to walk by faith and not by sight. This sensitivity has been the catalyst for my self-love journey, really, because without it, like, I would have continued to be disconnected or try to disconnect, because I think there was a point in my life where it was like I was purposely trying to disconnect because it felt like it was too much for me. It felt like it was a burden, honestly. It felt like a burden. And if you are someone who can relate to this, if you are someone who has experienced this, you know that sometimes it can feel like a burden. And that's the honest truth. It is the honest truth, because there can be this painted picture of, being able to like tap in and connect, like this picture of like everything's rainbows and butterflies. It's not, guys. It's not rainbows and butterflies. It is not. Does that take away from the beauty that already exists? No. But there's a level of darkness that is experienced when you allow yourself to feel, and when you allow yourself to feel in its entirety. So there was a period of time where it was, I think I felt shame. I felt shame for not just the level at which I felt, but the darkness at which I could know and even feel and be in my own being. And this light is kind of bothering me, but I can't really move it. Maybe here. I'll have to talk like this. Okay. I'll talk closer to you guys. And yeah, like, there was shame around it. There was shame around it, and there is a point that I just had to experience all of it, excuse me, to full surrender, to completely release any type of like attachment to how I was being perceived by others, or how I was even perceiving myself. And what else? I could go on a list of things, you guys, and I'm going to speak on it because I'm ready. I'm ready to kind of just be completely present with what is, knowing that I fully love and accept myself. And the next form, or I feel one of the highest forms of transmutation, and if you're not familiar with that word, transmutation is just essentially taking one thing and changing it, intentionally changing it into another. And more often than not, when you're changing it into another form, it is for the highest good. It is for the betterment of yourself and others, right? So when you're transmuting, you are actively changing, you are actively evolving, you are actively taking one thing and turning it into another. It's not that it's going away completely, it's that you're using that same thing, you're using it, mixing it up, stirring the pot, maybe adding some new ingredients in there so you can get something new. So one of the highest forms of that is being able to share with others, being able to be seen in that authentic truth of whether you like it for yourself or not, whether you're proud of it or not, sharing it. And there was another part of me that I didn't like that was, I would say, just really focused on love and what specifically romantic love would look like in this lifetime. And part of me still really loves or really desires that, right? And I think that's a natural human thing. Like mainly every person here wants to experience love in this lifetime, whether that just be through themselves, through a pet, through a partner, through a friendship. There's just that desire to experience it with somebody, right? And or with yourself. And for me, I have experienced what it is to love myself. I experienced what it is to be with myself. And because of that, I also know that I have a deep desire to experience it with another person. Specifically with a man, okay? With a man. Because I'm experiencing it with myself. I'm experiencing it with my daughter. I'm experiencing it with my family, with my brother. I'm experiencing it just with my presence and my connection to nature, and how I can just be present in a moment and just enjoy it, right? And also, I know that there is this desire, and may just be part of my own individual blueprint, that I desire to experience that same love. Just it's the same love, it's just a different version of it, with the expression of a romantic relationship. And I gotta turn this off. And the thing is, when I was a little younger, part of that came from, let me rephrase that. That desire was distorted. That desire was distorted because what the frequency at which I was coming from, which I was operating from, it was more from shame. It was also from, there was moments where it was from anger. There was moments that it was from just feelings of unworthiness, right? And because it was coming from that, really the way that manifested, the way that physicalized, was me being in situations or in relationships with men who either didn't want that, or didn't know, like that was not even in their conscious, like it was nowhere in their conscious awareness or being, and or the distortion became more just lust and, I would say, just desire for validation. And it was distorted because it's not necessarily separate. It's not two different things. It's literally the same thing, just operating from a different frequency, right? So in that point, it was like, I've always, even since I was a little girl, like I knew I was going to be a mom. I knew I was going to be married. Like I always had this desires. And a lot of people come into this life already having this. Like that's why little kids, they'll be like, oh yeah, when I grow up, I'm going to be an astronaut, or I'm going to, I'm going to own a farm, or whatever kids say. Like it's because those are like natural desires that come, and like it may or may not be the same. Like you might evolve and those desires might change, but there might be some things that never go away. And that's something that I noticed, where there were some things in my life that never went away and may not ever go away. And part of that tells me that that is a specific aspect of my own blueprint in this lifetime, the way I chose to be designed, and also just express the way that God chose to express itself through me in this present now. So to go back to, just like, I think there were times where I didn't like, or I wasn't proud of the fact that maybe I deeply did know what I want. It was just I wasn't getting what I want, or it wasn't happening the way I wanted it to. But at the same time, it was, I needed to get to a certain point to have enough reflections of me to start seeing myself clearer. And let me explain what I mean by that. Every single person that you encounter is reflecting back something to you. So, if it is something that you do not like, if it is something that makes you feel shitty, crappy, worse about yourself, okay, what is this reflecting? That's the first question that needs to be coming into your mind, because if you choose to believe that this is happening to you and not for you, you will stay in a victim mentality. And you can stay in it if you want. I've done it, trust me, I've done it. And it didn't really help. It didn't do much for me. To be honest with you, it didn't do much for me. It maybe just made me feel worse. It also made me feel powerless. It made me feel like I wasn't in control of my reality, and we are in control of our reality. It made me feel like I was giving my power away, and in many ways I was giving up my power away to people that didn't know, or really frankly didn't deserve it. And I'm genuinely, I pray that this, I genuinely just want this to come from a place of integrity and leaving pride and ego out of the door, because there's certain aspects of self that I also wasn't proud of, and those aspects of self were prideful, right? And at the same time, like reflecting on it now, it's like, I think pride Pride is an interesting thing. It really is, because that itself can also be in various expressions. And I feel like pride can be damaging. It can be very damaging. It can be very destructive when not used in a way that can bring positive change. Because there could be a level of pride in order to just kind of build yourself up. And the thing is, that pride might not actually be building anything. That might just be building up a facade. So it's a very tricky thing, because when you, yeah, I think it's not black or white, but simultaneously, most of the time, pride may not be the solution. Let's say that. Pride may not be the solution, okay? And I noticed where there were moments where I was very prideful, and I was very much maybe trying to prove a point, or trying to, and that's also stubbornness, I would say. Yeah, lots of stubbornness. And yeah, I think releasing shame around that, releasing shame around, yeah, being a little stubborn, and part of that has also been a really great gift for myself, because if you also consider yourself stubborn, and maybe have been called that by several people, you will also come to find that your stubbornness has served you in certain situations. Your stubbornness has served you in ways of like being committed to your authenticity, whether that may be in alignment with the highest good or not. That stubbornness could serve you sometimes. So, yeah. And then another aspect would be just this like really deep, whoa. Yeah, another aspect would be like observing and knowing how could be very like in this, what we as a, I guess as a society nowadays, it might be considered like dark feminine, or just erotic self. And I think I mentioned this in another video when I was in the car. But this aspect of self has had so much shame, because in the past it was used or distorted. It was distorted, and it was coming from trying to be in control. It was coming from fear, I would say, in simplest terms, fear. It was also coming from maybe greed and manipulation, and just a level of pride, really. Pride. Yeah. So because of that, then there became, or grew, harnessed shame around that, because there was a point where I realized that wasn't in full alignment, right? And sometimes when you realize that when you've been acting out of alignment, or if it's been going on for a while and then all of a sudden you come to these realizations where you're like, oh shit, like that wasn't cool what you did, right? When that happens and you start becoming, more empathetic and just like wanting to change for the better, it kind of hits you. It's kind of like you hit a brick wall and you're like, ouch, right? So that's kind of what happened. And I realized that even though there are many times where I manifested, for lack of a better word, assholes in my life, I was also being an asshole in some way. I was also being manipulative or just not coming from love. And sometimes I wonder, I'm like, damn, was I really that bad to have experienced other situations that could have been completely ignored? And at the same time, like, I think there was a lot of pressure on myself to be perfect. And I know for a fact that there's people that have done a lot worse things than I have. And I really never did anything that I guess would make someone feel like God didn't love them. And I think that's the main thing. That's the main thing. I never did that to that extent, And at the same time, there was moments where I felt that. And it wasn't that I believed that God didn't love me. It was just like, damn, like, people can be really this fucked up. And at the same time, it was like letting go of the shame and anger around not choosing better for myself, or being in situations where I knew weren't good for me, but I still did it because one aspect was the self-worth wasn't there, and another aspect was I maybe wanted to be in control, and it was like this inner battle, but also like purposely seeking chaos and purposely seeking just confrontation or things that would shake it up, right? And this was a quality that I didn't like about myself, because I'm like, why do I do that? But the thing is, and you might relate to this if you've experienced this, if you grew up in a household where majority of the time it was chaos, majority of the time it was an unregulated nervous system, majority of the time it was, in a way, your body feeling like fight or flight, or what's the other one, freeze or fawn, something like that. When you grow up and when that becomes your norm, you do not know what else to seek, right? It actually becomes familiar to you. It actually becomes, in some weird, unexplainable way, that chaos is comfort. But beneath that is just the fear or the uncertainty of what it feels like to experience something different. So I had to release a lot of that. I had to release the part of me that likes chaos, and I had to release the part of me that invited chaos, and I had to release the part of me that instigated chaos. Yeah. And I love, you know what? I could say I love her. I love her because you know what? She went through a lot. She went through a lot and she was just doing the best that she could with the tools that she had at the time. Okay? So I love her. I love her. All right? And I now know and I now choose differently. I choose differently because I have that choice and I have those options. And while that is always a choice, well, I could always go back to that if I really wanted to, but I don't. I choose peace. I choose peace and I choose to be reflected the parts of me that I genuinely want to see more of. That I genuinely it just fills and lights me up, you know? So, I think I feel complete with that. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.